Hello, YouTube.
Whoa, YouTube.
I feel like we don't have like a cool intro like all the big YouTubers. Like, what's up, guys? We're back again. Your favorite Murakami bros talking about another Haruki Murakami short story.
I think we have one now. I think you just did it. That was perfect.
I don't know if that's I don't know if that might have been a one-time thing. I don't know if I'm gonna ever have the energy to do that again.
I think you'll be able to do it. I think that was perfect, though. It was right on the money. YouTube.
Yeah.
Really good stuff.
Maybe it doesn't work for books.
Oh, shit.
Because it's not as hype as whatever. Apex
Sorry,
Legends.
I clicked mute for a second. I don't know what you said.
Oh, because you muted me? I was just saying it's different. It doesn't work for books maybe as much as it does for fucking Apex Legends or whatever.
No, but I mean, we'll see, because you're gonna have to do it every time now.
Okay, I'm doing it. I don't even remember what I said. I'm gonna have to watch the video back.
There's a lot of hand movements and thumbs up.
Yeah, you need hand movements.
Thumbs ups.
Yo, guys, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
We got 2 Haruki Murakami short stories in this episode. So with that being said, let's get right to it.
You just did it again.
That was different. That one was different. That was different.
It was the same but different.
Yeah. That's all.
You just gotta.
They all are.
You gotta get your inner tire salesman going, which I think you got in you.
It's more like inner like YouTube like list video guy. Yeah.
Yucky.
Anyway, hey, everybody.
Hey.
I'm not doing that full intro again. This is Gabe and Paul, and we are here as representatives of the Spinecrackers podcast, which is a podcast where you already know this probably if you're watching this video. But if not, it's a literary podcast where we read books, talk about it. There's a third member who's not here, and and
he's not allowed in this group.
No, this is me and Paul's. This is our time. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
this is us time. Yeah,
it's us.
This is us. This is us.
This is us.
And so this is episode 8, I think, Paul.
Oh, I mean,
of
congratulations for remembering that. I had no idea.
Of our exploration of the short fiction of Haruki Murakami, who we have read one of his novels on the podcast, but we are doing
short stories collections.
Read the short stories, and we are working right now through the Elephant Vanishes. We talked last time about the first story, and we are going to do the next 2 in this episode because they were slightly shorter than the first one. And the next 2 here are the second bakery attack and the Kangaroo Communique.
And before we get started, I did want to say that I did find out that the first story we read is in fact like a word for word. It's like the same exact chapter as the Wind Up Bird Chronicle.
Oh, okay. Thank you for answering that question.
Our mutual friend filled me in after listening to the episode.
Okay, so it's like word for word, the whole thing. Okay, interesting. So that mystery is now solved. Oh, first of all, before we get started, also, if you like this episode, please leave us a like, leave us a comment. We love to hear feedback on what we're doing. If we suck, if we're doing okay, if whatever, literally whatever. Leave us a comment about your cat, anything.
That would be on point in a video like this, because it would, Murakami loves cats.
Loves cats. I don't think no cats in these stories, though. Interestingly, I don't think.
Yes, but there are some mentioned, like little tiny. I mean, there's some bingo card mentions for sure.
These had, well, we'll get into that, but these had very few bingo card moments. These 2,
yeah, they did,
which is interesting. But anyway, if you like this, if you think this is worth your time and whatever, give us a like, a comment. God forbid a subscribe if you really enjoy.
Whoa!
And if you really enjoy, we'll have the link to the Patreon down below, where we do other sort of random discussion stuff. Last time, after we did our last Murakami episode, me and Paul just had an impromptu hour-long discussion of Blade Runner that we put on there.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was great. So and when we come back to the main show in a couple of weeks, we are going to be shifting a lot of content from the main show, which is going to be a lot shorter now, over to the Patreon. So if you want to just get that out of the way, if you like the long form stuff, that's where it's all going to be.
For just $2.
For just $2 a month, baby, you can get access to that and our private Discord, which pops off and is a good time. So all that will be down in the description.
We're all about having a good time.
We are all about having a good time. Exactly. Okay, so with all that stuff out of the way, let's talk about these two stories. The first one, the second bakery attack. What's this one about?
This one was about like a dude who wakes up in the middle of the night at 2:00 in the morning with his wife at like the same exact time, and they're really, really hungry.
Like insanely
Indescribably hungry.
Yeah.
The most hungry you can possibly be, apparently.
Hungrier than that.
And they have no food in the house. They have like some beers in the fridge and like baking soda or something.
Shout outs to beer.
So they start drinking the beers, trying to, they can't get back to sleep because they're so hungry or whatever. And then the husband ends up, they're newlyweds too, which is
relatively
kind of like
new.
It's like 2 weeks since they've been married.
That's kind of a bingo card. Like newlyweds or like relatively new married couples. Isn't that sort of a bingo card?
I guess so.
Well, the one thing that is definitely a bingo card is that he works in some like a vague way at like a law firm in a lowly way.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if it's like technically on we should have like the bingo wheel up to see, but
yeah, maybe next time we'll pull up the bingo card.
Yeah. So what happens? Basically I forget how, but he starts talking about basically he robbed a bakery.
Not robbed, attacked.
Attacked,
that's very
which is funny.
Distinction.
Yes. Yeah, they call it a bakery attack, which is the title or whatever. But so when he was like a teenager or whatever, he was really hungry, which is also a weird, confusing thing. But him and his friend were like really hungry
and presumably poor, I guess, right?
Yeah, but like it doesn't really make sense to me because like if they're in school, don't they have parents? Like, do they just want extra money for like going to the arcade or something? I don't totally get it.
Who knows?
But they end up going into a bakery with knives drawn, and the baker says like, you can have all of the bread in the place if you listen to this particular, I forget who, but this like
Wagner is a famous classical musician, composer / I think he composed operas and whatnot.
That's a bingo card thing.
Classical music. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's in both of these stories.
Mm-hmm. So they do it and whatever, and they get all the bread, and then, but basically he tells this story to his new wife, and she's convinced that he has like a curse on him. Like he brings up the idea of a curse, but she ends up being convinced that it is a curse. And that night, it's like 2:30 in the morning now, after he tells the story, she thinks they should go out that night and rob a bakery to break the curse.
Right.
And they end up not being able to find a bakery. They're in Tokyo, and she's like, there's got to be an all-night bakery in Tokyo, but there isn't. So they go to McDonald's. And they end up going in there with like ski masks on, and she has a shotgun. The wife's pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah.
She seems really cool. But they end up like asking for 30 cheeseburgers,
30 Big Macs, or 30 cheeseburgers. Yeah.
And they basically get the burgers, and they go sit on a bench and they eat a few of them, and she falls asleep on his shoulder. And I mean, we'll get into the details, but that's the general plot.
No, I mean, I think that's basically it.
Yeah.
You did a good job with that one, because that's pretty much everything. I mean, I think this is just a very, very weird little story.
Yeah.
I think the thing that stuck out to me, or one of the things that stuck out to me about this one, is just the how obvious the wife treats all of these things that are like on the face of them like ridiculous. So she's like, oh yeah, well, obviously you're cursed because you
Yeah.
attacked this bakery when you were younger,
Uh-huh.
and you listened to this the Wagner record all the way through. And so now the only logical thing to do, obviously, is to go attack another bakery.
Yeah.
But if we can't find one, McDonald's is fine too. That counts. And I
Yeah.
just found some of her dialogue, like with the McDonald's workers, to be so funny, which because she
Yeah.
gets the 30 Big Macs and then she orders 2 sodas and pays for them.
Yeah.
And then she's like,
When she says something like, "I'm
she's
only
like,
after the bread."
we're only stealing the bread. We're
Yeah.
only stealing the bread.
Yeah, I mean, I found this one pretty humorous and funny throughout too. Just you're right, the crazy ideas of just like buying into the curse, and the dialogue was funny. I liked it. It was a good little story.
Well, and I think one of the interesting things that you didn't mention, Paul, but that it's not really part of the plot. It's just kind of something that's going on in the background. Is that the main character kind of keeps having this like dreamlike vision of like being on a boat in the
Oh yeah.
water, and underneath him is this underwater volcano that he can see like about to rise up and like either erupt on him or swallow him into it or something like that. And it's sort of implied at the end when, and I don't know if that is supposed to be his curse exactly. I don't know what kind of curse that is, but by the end, when they rob the McDonald's or attack the McDonald's,
Yeah.
he has a vision and the volcano is no longer there, and he's just kind of chilling in his boat, floating in the water, and
Yeah.
it's posy vibes.
Yes, positive vibes. The volcano goes dormant.
Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't really know what to make of that, other than like I only thought of it as the curse, but it felt not heavy-handed in a way, but something about it didn't totally work with me. It's just like too blatant of a vision or something.
yeah.
I, you know,
Well, it's one of these weird things that I'm um coming to realize with Murakami, is that he'll do something like that, which I agree is sort of like heavy-handed in one sense, in the sense that like, okay, there's there's this recurring vision of being in a boat floating with a volcano underneath you, under the water. uh I guess like that's heavy-handed in the sense that it's clearly supposed to mean something, but what the fuck is it supposed to mean? Right? Like
yeah,
that's the part of it that's never heavy-handed really to me, is that like the actual meaning of the symbol, or the actual meaning of the kind of like reference or whatever, or vision. It's obvious that it's supposed to mean something, and that in that sense it can feel heavy-handed, but it's very, very unclear what it is usually.
yeah. I think you're right. I think that it would have been more heavy-handed if he like woke up in the middle of the night listening to like and hearing Wagner in his
Right,
ears.
right.
You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's not as heavy-handed as that. And you're right. It's like what do I even think about this idea of a volcano? Like what, it doesn't directly relate to the attack on the bakery that he did when he was a
No.
teenager. Maybe Wagner. Is it Wagner?
Wagner, yeah.
Maybe Wagner was like a volcano freak or something.
Or a bread freak.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I mean, I think, again, it's well, the other thing that I thought was just hilarious was just the wife. You mentioned the character of the wife. I love her just owning this big shotgun and a ski mask for no
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah. It's fucking
And the
awesome.
husband this just has no idea. But I mean, again, right, like it's this classic sort of like Murakami story about the distances and the closeness between couples, right, between married
Mhm.
couples, right, because this is something that the wife didn't know about the husband, that he had attacked this bakery, and the husband comes to find out some things he didn't know about his wife, that she owns this big shotgun and a ski mask for some reason, and so in that way they're distant, but it's this also sense of kind of felicitous closeness because it comes together in a way that neither of them had sort of known or planned, you know?
Yeah, and I think Murakami writes a lot about those kind of married people's relationships, and he's fascinated by like, different sides of people and like secrets
Right.
between husband and wife or whatever.
Right.
Um, it might be a little bit because I think he's been married to the same woman for like a long ass time, like
Murakami himself.
40 years or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he always seems to have similar like themes about, I don't know, cheating or, I don't know, just all sorts of ideas that roll through your head if you've been with someone for a long time. But, this one isn't about people that are together for a long time. It's about the beginning of a marriage, but there's similar things there.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I feel like these two characters were kind of on the more comedic side for Murakami, like as opposed to the like sad, depressing, like,
Yeah.
sad boy and sad girl side,
Like the last story.
like the last story. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a story of kind of a not necessarily a failing relationship or a broken relationship, but one that was maybe entering some dire straits.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
This
that,
one had like a kind of like a freshness to it. Like
yeah,
it kind of I walked away with the feeling of like a fresh relationship when you're finding new things out about each other and having this sort of, crazy experience on a random night with somebody. Yeah.
the other thing that it made me think of is that maybe this is a stretch, but like, I don't even know what the timeline is because I think this book came out in the or this
Early 90s.
this book came out in the early 90s. I don't know when this short story was published. It may have been earlier than that, but around the time that this book was released, like there was anyway, but like the story reminded me thematically of various attacks on McDonald's that have occurred in non-American countries, like in France and I think in Taiwan. There was a series of like McDonald's bombings and
Really?
like terrorist attacks that happened in the 90s and 2000s.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And so obviously this would have come out before the ones in the 2000s and stuff. I don't know the exact timeline of the other ones, but it got me thinking about, just because again, Murakami also later in his career has a sort of interest in, or develops an interest at least, in terrorist attacks, where he wrote a whole book about the subway gas attack, right?
The Underground, or Notes
Yeah.
from the Underground, which I have and I haven't read it yet.
Is it? Well, Notes from the Underground is Dostoevsky. I think it's just, it might
Oh
just
no,
be
no, Underground.
it's just Underground, right?
Yeah.
um
Doi.
I haven't read that one, but
I
it's,
think it's called
it,
Underground.
it shows that he has sort of an abiding interest, at least, in terrorism and sort of terrorist attacks. And so I just thought it was an interesting kind of dovetailing with that interest that he develops later on in his career, and these other sorts of events that I know have happened around the world being sort of terrorist attacks on McDonald's, which are different than what's going on here. This wasn't like a terrorist attack per se. It was just kind of like a robbery. But I was just thinking along those lines.
Yeah. He does display some sort of fascination with them for sure. Yeah, this ends up being more like a borderline prank, but it can't be a prank because there's a real gun involved.
Right.
But the whole situation ends up being just, it's a funny little attack, not a robbery.
Right.
But they ask them to like close the blinds of the McDonald's, and they're like, no, I can't, we can't close the store because that's gonna like come back on me.
I'll get in trouble.
And there's also this couple that are like passed out the entire attack that
Yep.
never wake up. Yeah, it was just like a funny situation.
Yeah,
But
there's a lot of absurd little details. That passed out couple, I think, was really interesting.
yeah, that actually reminded me of I haven't finished After Dark yet, but there's a scene, the beginning scene in After Dark by Murakami is like a couple. I think they might be at McDonald's, but I think they're at a diner or something at night, late at night. And they don't fall asleep, but they have this conversation. It's like a young couple. So maybe that's part of the bingo card thing too. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Hmm.
But I also noted just briefly like a couple of the the descriptions of the McDonald's workers interested me, because the other reason that I guess I got thinking about the McDonald's kind of terrorist attacks and Murakami is that, Murakami I think is interested in, I think there's probably a lot going on in a lot of his writing that is difficult to access for Western readers that are not familiar with like some of his gentle cultural references and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And I wondered if there wasn't like a little bit of a class element when he's describing some of the McDonald's workers. Like I remember the reaction of the first, when the husband walks in, he sees like a girl, like a younger girl student, and he was a little shocked. Like I couldn't imagine this younger girl working at a McDonald's late at night, because for whatever cultural moire type reason that I don't understand, So just like a couple little interesting bits like that stuck out to me too.
So maybe a rare moment where Murakami might be talking about class or
maybe, yeah.
Yeah, which he generally never
or
does.
Well,
or
that's
at least from our perspective as Westerners.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like at least maybe it's not as rare as we think it is.
Mm. We have them all wrong.
Okay, you want to talk about the next one?
Yes. Oh, you want to score that one first?
Yeah. Let's score it.
I'm going to give it a solid 3.9.
Whoa, you 3.9.
Well, how about 3.9?
I was
9. Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was great. I don't know. It was really funny, short and sweet, and it was actually something that I haven't experienced from reading Murakami before. So I give him, which I'm looking for with Murakami. I'm looking for something new and fresh that goes against the common tropes.
See, I'm starting to love the warm bath of the tropes. I just want I just want the cat and the well and the sad boy who quit his job.
Okay.
I'm starting to sink into it.
You're on one section of the wave. I'm on a different section.
Yeah, we're on different arcs right now, dude. That's all it is.
Yeah.
I would give it like a 3.5, 3.4 or 5, 3.45.
Okay. Nice compromise there.
Yeah. I liked it. It was definitely less depressing, I think, than some of his other stories. It was much more uplifting and wholesome.
And I like the wholesome, cheeky little Murakami story.
All right, 3.56.
Nice.
bump
I
it
don't
up.
care.
Yeah, I know. No one remembers these scores.
Yeah.
Okay, the next story is called the Kangaroo Communique, and this one is fucking zonky.
It is zonky. That's a great word.
A zonky, weird story. It's written in epistolary fashion, which means it's as a letter. And it, over the course of the story, which talks about a wide sort of random assortment of topics, seemingly from going to the zoo and talking about kangaroos. I'm
such an idiot. Like I just hear the word kangaroo and I laugh.
And like little, it is a funny word. There's no denying it.
It's a funny word.
There's no denying it. And there's like a little made up myth kind of story about an Egyptian sandman who everything he touches turns to sand, and just these sort of very random assortment of topics. You get the picture over the course of the story that this is a letter that's being written by someone who works essentially in the complaints department of like a department store
or like a grocery store or a department store.
I think it's more like, because the the original complaint was that the person had bought the wrong record.
Okay.
I think they wanted, I forget exactly, but it was, again, check your bingo cards. For classical music, they were looking for a Brahms record, but accidentally bought Mahler. Um,
And then
and
that person, who's a woman, you find out later, writes a letter
right,
to this guy, or not to the guy, but to the store. And he's the guy that reviews all the letters. And
yes,
he just he like loved the letter so much that he decided to write a letter back. And it's
but
I
then
think
it
it's interesting.
goes even beyond just a letter, and he starts recording his voice on a tape,
Yeah,
and
which is,
and like
yeah.
addressing her, who is you, the audience, reading the story also.
And it's kind of unclear. I tried to go back and look for the moment where you realize that it had switched from a letter to an audio recording, but I couldn't
Yeah,
find one. Well, I didn't look that hard though, but it's very kind of strange and funny. Um, but yeah, you're right. It's zonky and kind of a little bit disturbing.
yeah,
Um,
it's hard because then he starts to talk about towards the end, you know, of course, because it's kind of Murakami, he starts talking about sex, talking about like wanting to sleep with the woman who is trying to return the record.
yeah,
But then he gets into this weird philosophical discussion about, well, it's not that I want to sleep with you, it's that I want to be, he's obsessed with being two places at
two
once.
places at once.
That's like his, not three or four, he literally just wants to be two places at once.
Mhm.
And he sort of uh I'll I'm gonna just read it because it's like kind of like, yeah, it's just really weird. um okay. I'm just going to read this whole paragraph. It's
Okay.
like, to talk about myself then. Actually, I'm extremely dissatisfied with being who I am. It's nothing to do with my looks or abilities or status or any of that. It simply has to do with me being me. The situation strikes me as grossly unfair.
Yeah.
Still, that doesn't mean you should write me off as someone with a lot of gripes. I have not one complaint about the place where I work or about my salary. The work is undeniably boring, but then most jobs are boring. Money is not a major issue here. Shall I put it on the line? I want to be able to be in two places at once. That is my one and only wish. Other than that, there's not a thing I desire. Yet, being who and what I am, my singularity hampers this desire of mine. An unhappy lot, don't you think? My wish, if anything, is rather unassuming. I don't want to be ruler of the world, nor do I want to be an artist of genius. I merely want to exist in two places simultaneously. Got it? Not
Got it.
three, not three, not four, only two. I want to be roller skating while I'm listening to an orchestra at a concert hall. I want to be a McDonald's quarter pounder and still be a clerk in the product control section of the department store. I want to sleep with you and be sleeping with my girlfriend all the while. I want to lead a general existence and yet be a distinct separate entity.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, I don't know what to think about that. But I mean, at the end, when he mentions that he wants to keep being with his girlfriend, which is also a
Mm-hmm.
little funny section because he's like, we've been
Oh yeah, by the way, I have a
seeing each other
girlfriend.
for like a year and we have sex twice a week and it's okay and fine. But he like wants to do that still.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say? But yeah, it comes across as like a weird like almost incel admiration or some kind. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
creepy and
It's
funny, but
yeah.
I don't know what to make of it really.
Well, and for this, like, yeah, I don't really know what to make of it. I mean, I can talk a little. I could talk a little bit about some of that discussion at the end where he's getting into these questions of like personal identity and wanting to be in two, because it's not always wanting to be two bodies or to be in two places. He wants to, at one point he says he wants to be a McDonald's quarter pounder.
Yeah.
So it's like wanting to totally put your identity into some inanimate object, which I think is interesting. But
It is interesting. I don't get it.
Yeah, no.
I've
Well,
never had the desire. I've had the desire to, like, when I've been working horrible jobs, to have like a clone of myself that doesn't have a brain and just does my
yeah,
work, and I can sit
yeah.
home
Well, I think
and not do anything.
I think that's kind of what he's saying. He's, it's like he wants to kind of dissolve into like some general state of existence, but also then be able to himself go do whatever he actually wants to do.
I mean, that's like heaven, right?
Yeah.
If there has to be a workforce and you have to work, then why not make clones? Science has to get on top of this clone business.
Clone stuff. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because so the kangaroo thing comes from this the beginning is really funny. Like he goes to the zoo, and it's like the going to the zoo was the first, and seeing the kangaroos was the first domino to
Of
fall
36
of
dominoes.
36 steps that led me to like writing you this letter. And I'm just going to read a little bit of this too, because it's funny and also interesting. um Anyway, looking at these kangaroos, I got the urge to send you a letter. Maybe that strikes you as odd. You ask yourself, why should looking at kangaroos make me want to send you a letter? And just what is the connection between these kangaroos and me? Well, you can stop thinking those thoughts right now. Makes no never mind. Kangaroos are kangaroos, you are you. In other words, it's like this: 36 intricate procedural steps, followed one by one in just the right order, led me from the kangaroos to you. That's it. To attempt to explain each and every one of these steps would surely try your powers of comprehension, but more than that, I doubt I can even remember them all. There were 36 of them after all. So it's like he has this very weird internal logic, this writer of this letter, about the relationship between kangaroos and this woman that he's writing the letter to, and the ways in which he desires to be in multiple places at once. It reminded me, at least formally, this is the first time I've ever read anything that I would say is like this formally experimental from Murakami. Like this is very, like, just in terms of the writing, very, very unique in anything that I've read of his.
Yeah,
uh
me
there's like
too.
there's actual kind of bracketed moments of like the guy, lighting a cigarette, or the sound of him whistling, or him knocking on the tabletop, that are all bracketed out, like, knock 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 or whatever.
Yeah,
And that's something that I've just never seen Murakami do before. I don't know about you,
I
Paul.
think
You
I haven't either, and I think maybe part of it is because of that. When he starts writing in those brackets and different forms, it's in the section where it has shifted into it being a recording.
Yeah, right.
So maybe that's part of why he switched over to that. But yeah, I haven't really seen him write like that
I
either, or
Yeah,
as
yeah.
experimental as this. In anything I've written or read of his.
And he talks about, well, the reason I brought that up is because it reminded me a bit of a very, very kind of condensed and, slightly more straightforward in terms of the content version of, there's a Samuel Beckett play called Krapp's Last Tape, and it's a similar sort of thing where it's this guy talking into a tape recorder and just recording sort of various thoughts and kind of reflections and so on and so forth. But of course it's Beckett, so it's like very, very weird and very strange. But this kind of reminded me of that, with obviously a sort of a Murakami spin on it, and that sort of that weird dream logic that Murakami is so good at articulating.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read Beckett, but the dream logic thing is, I mean, I think that's apparent in both of these stories. Though, is like both of the ideas for these stories feel like ideas that you would have in a dream, and I think that's one of the things that's always drawn me to Murakami, is his like ability to articulate of kind of a strange foreign thought that is like deep in your subconscious or something, but then he kind of like takes off with it and makes some sense out of it, or at least is able to like write about that strange idea clearly. But then again, you walk away from it thinking like, what the fuck just happened? sort of like a real dream.
Right. Yeah. He also brings up the writer of this letter. He talks about this thing called the nobility of imperfection principle, right? You remember this?
Actually, no.
And it's only mentioned once or twice. It's mentioned like once on 55 and then again towards the end. But it's talking about forgiveness, and it's this sort of like way of in this guy's mind, again, this weird logic, this way of transferring forgiveness through like a third party, where he says, simply put, the nobility of imperfection might mean nothing so much as the proposition that someone in effect forgives someone else. I forgive the kangaroos forgive you, you forgive me, to cite but one example. No explanation. So it's like, again, you wonder about the mental kind of state of the person writing this letter. Like, why are they concerned with forgiveness? Do they want to be forgiven because they denied the person's request to get reimbursed for the record they bought mistakenly? Like, what's the
Yeah. Those are good questions. I have no idea. Does he want to be forgiven for even taking up her time writing, like making her read this stupid letter?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I liked it. I have no. Yeah. What do you what did you even make of the title and the kangaroos being involved in it in any way? Because they're just in the beginning. It's just him at the zoo, but then he ends up naming the tape recording the title of the story. He ends up calling it the Kangaroo Communique.
Yeah. And I mean, again, I just think it's this bizarre free associative logic that this person has sort of developed for themselves, or either in general in their life or around this other person specifically. I mean, there's just so many weird little details in here, because there's this one moment early on when he's doing the tape and he's knocking, and it's labeled as rapping on tabletop, and then he says, now for some knocking, knock knock knock, stop me if you've heard this, don't open the door if you don't feel like it, either way is perfectly fine. And it's like, it makes you wonder, like, was he outside her door, like knocking on the actual door, recording into the tape recorder?
Ooh, I just got chills.
Which
That's
would also
disgusting.
be super creepy. That would be much more sinister than maybe it was meant to be.
Yeah, like, do you want to read that paragraph, or I can?
I mean, I don't. Yeah, I just read the only parts that I thought were relevant, but yeah.
Yeah, because he says, "Stop me if you've heard this."
Yeah.
Don't open the door. Yeah. Did you already read that?
Yeah, I just read that one line, though. I didn't read the rest of the paragraph, though.
But in a lot of these paragraphs, I noticed that he was like having kind of a Joker laugh at the end of them.
Yeah.
Ha-has.
Yeah. Or hey.
Yeah. It's creepy.
Yeah, he is potentially a little bit Joker-fied in.
You know what? I was getting 1 hour photo vibes with Robin Williams. Remember that movie?
Oh, vaguely. I haven't seen it in so long.
That movie's fucking good. But yeah, it's like Robin Williams as like he works at a 1 hour photo, which is obviously like an outdated thing.
Yeah.
But he's like in a Walmart, and he ends up being obsessed with like a woman who comes in and starts to. It's really fucking creepy. But
yeah, that sounds. I remember that vaguely, that plot synopsis, and that definitely sounds like what's going on here to a degree.
But yet again, it's not like it rides the line of being like too far. Like, if he is actually knocking on her door while recording on a tape recorder, yeah, it's too far, but it's still vague enough to be like, I don't know if he is or not.
Yeah.
Because
it's very vague.
Yeah.
And I think,
it's both like creepy and weirdly wholesome too.
Yeah.
Like, which is a strange line to be on.
Yeah.
Difficult line to be on.
Yeah. And it walks it well. I mean, I think obviously Murakami has experience writing weirdos and creepers, and whatever, people obsessed with women and stuff. But this one had a different tone because it wasn't as straightforward.
Yeah. What did you make of the section where he talks about the Egyptian Sandman? Like you mentioned it in your opening statement, but
Well, it's just so, because he brings it up and he pitches it as this famous
Egyptian parable or whatever.
parable or story from Egypt, and then he's like, well, I just made it all up, ha ha ha, joke.
Yeah. He's like, sometimes I feel like I'm the Sandman and everything I touch turns to sand.
Right.
And he's like, oh, but I just made that story up, like completely up, haha. Yeah, it's
because I'm the Joker.
I'm the Joker.
I think unofficially the Joker made the Kangaroo Communique.
Yeah, I think you're right. The Joker was wearing Joker makeup.
Yeah,
that's where this all started.
I think this is the out of all the Murakami stories that I've read so far, this one is the most unlike any of the others. It doesn't really have a lot of the same themes. Sex comes up, but only in a very weird way. It's very formally,
which is a theme.
Yeah.
Weird sex.
That's true. But it's very formally distinct. The voice is just very different, and I don't really know what to make of it other than what I've already said. I think there's some interesting, philosophical. Oh, okay. One small thing that I did pick up, and I don't know if there's anything to make of this, and I don't know how close to one another these stories were written, but in the last story, the second bakery attack, I don't know if you remembered this, Paul, but it stuck out to me a little bit because at the beginning he's talking about his wife and the way she sort of speaks, and he says, whenever my wife expresses such an opinion or thesis back then, it reverberated in my ears with the authority of a relevant revelation.
Oh yeah. And
then it came back later on the next page, and he says, I all but automatically agreed with her thesis, parentheses, or declaration. So he using all these different words to talk about the way his wife speaks. And then in this story, there's a moment where he says, really and truly, you had me wondering, was the letter in fact intended as a complaint or a confession or a proclamation, or was it perhaps meant to put forth some thesis? I had no idea. And it's just interesting that Murakami is kind of playing with all of these different ways of expressing oneself, different forms of expression, whether it's a letter or recording yourself into a tape recorder, but also different terms for talking about it, a thesis, an opinion, a revelation, a confession, complaint. Like it's all of these various things kind of wrapped together, or different angles of looking at linguistic expression between people. I don't know. It's something that just stuck out to me a little bit.
Well, it's interesting too because it's not exactly between people in this story though. It's because
True.
Like there's no way for this woman to. I mean, there is a way for her to respond, but it's in general a one-sided storytelling, moment basically. Like you know that she wrote a letter, but it wasn't directly to him.
Right.
And the letter and audio recording that he was writing back, we don't get a response from it. So it's just like this whole picture of what's going on from one person's perspective. It actually reminded me a little bit of Base Cathedral.
Yes.
Because that was an entire book written in letter form to, what was the guy's name he was writing to?
Angel of Dust.
Angel of Dust. Nice. That would have been a good question for the end of the year episode. But I remember at the end of that, I was just like kind of fascinated by the idea of like this, you're getting such an intimate one side of a conversation.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I think is interesting about this story, I think that's a good connection. It's like this, very revealing and intimate, but it's always one-sided, right? But, here, he talks about at the end of the story wanting to have this sort of a generalized self and a specific self. And it's interesting that the specific self is the one that we are reading, writing, and recording this letter, but the generalized self is the one to whom the letter was originally addressed, which is just anybody at this complaint department, right? I'm just generally sending it to nobody specifically, just anybody. But then he kind of his personality coalesces as the person who is tasked with responding to the letter. So it's almost as if he's already living in a generalized and a specific sense at the same time, which he says is his desire.
Oh, so he's already doing it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He just has to realize that. Maybe that's what she should write back to him.
Open your mind.
Open your mind.
All right. Well,
we did have a mention of an elephant in this story too. I was waiting.
Oh, true. At the beginning, when he talks about going to the zoo.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the elephant
to appear and then vanish.
To vanish. What's my rating? You want to go into ratings?
Unless you had anything more specific to say about this one.
No, I don't think so.
Weirdest, most un-Murakami story of Murakami's that you've read?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, I think that probably, if I ever get around to reading Underground, that'll be, because I think it's actually more like a
that's like non-fiction though, isn't it?
Yeah. So I don't even know if that counts,
might not count.
Okay, so then probably yes. I can't think of any right now, but probably the weirdest, most non-Murakami story I've read.
Nice.
Probably for you too.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely for me.
Yeah.
I'll go first. I would give this one I think I like this one. I actually don't really know if I like this one more or less than the last one. What did I give the last one? 3.5.
I'm right there.
3.56. I think I gave the last one.
Yeah.
I'm going to give this one a 3.6. I think I liked it a little more just because it was so out of the blue for me, for Murakami.
Okay. I gave the last one a 3.9. I'm going to give this one a 3.89.
What?
Because I think I like it 1 degree
just
less.
A little bit less, yeah.
But I don't know. They were both really good, but in very different ways.
And both kind of unique for Murakami in different ways.
Yeah, I think that's what I appreciated about both of them, actually. They both felt fresh and unique. The first one felt a little, more Murakami like. This one, like you said already, is just like kind of an outlier. Worth a read.
Worth a read. All right. Well, I think that's all we've got for you this time. Listen, everybody, come back next time when we read more Murakami short stories. Yeah.
If you've gotten this far in the episode, just type Murakami.
Do it.
Just type Haruki Murakami in the comments.
Type Haruki Murakami.
That'll make me really
comments.
happy.
If we see anyone who's watched this whole thing, just type that in the comments. We will love you forever.
I know typing is can be annoying, but just do it.
Do it for us. We're begging. We're on our knees.
Yep. I've been on my knees this whole episode.
I've literally been on my belly. That's how I do it.
That is true, actually. Yeah.
It's comfortable for me. I like sitting like this.
It's probably good for your body.
Yeah, probably.
It's like passive yoga, or very passive yoga.
Yeah, I'm definitely working my shoulders doing this. Yeah,
I think you are.
Well, anyway, if you liked this, like we said, comment, subscribe, Patreon, everything, etc. Instagram, Twitter, YouTube.
Our phone numbers.
Yeah. New Patreon tier. You get our personal phone numbers.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about that, especially not after that last story.
Definitely not. No.
All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. And Paul's going on vacation, everybody. Have a good vacation, Paul.
Thank you. I'm going on vacation.
All right. Bye.
Bye.